It's not going to have anyone in the driver's seat. And I think a lot of people, even just a couple months ago, expected someone to be in the driver's seat supervising this thing. I know James Catt was one of those people as well. But as you can see in the video, you'll see that no one is in the driver's seat. There's someone in the passenger seat, and I believe that's likely just an engineer, sort of for safety reasons.
Welcome to the Gigacast. My name is Gav, here today with Omar and Sawyer, and it's finally happening, folks. We have Teslas driving on the roads in public. People are seeing them, and there is nobody in the driver's seat. There's nobody even in the passenger seat. This thing is fully autonomously driving itself. It is a glorious day. Before we get into the depths of the episode, if you're watching this on YouTube, which you are, go ahead and smash that subscribe button for me if you're not subscribed already. We're getting those numbers up. I think it was a little bit over 30% plus of y'all watching last time are subscribed, but let's keep bumping those numbers up because the content is really about to heat up with these massive updates that Tesla's having. With that being said, let's get right into it. Sawyer, you posted the video. It went massively viral. Elon Musk quote tweeted. Everybody on the Tesla team was commenting. They were waiting for this moment. What's your thoughts?
I'm assuming these things have been out there for many days now, but no one's actually captured a video of it. So I think the FSD and autopilot teams and everyone at Tesla was like, when are these people going to find this Robotaxi and post about it? And yesterday was that moment. But yeah, this is such a massive moment for the company. I mean, literally, we've been waiting nearly a decade for this moment. And for years and years and years, we've been talking about Tesla's going to have a Robotaxi eventually. It's not going to have anyone in the driver's seat. And I think a lot of people, even just a couple months ago, expected someone to be in the driver's seat supervising this thing. I know James Catt was one of those people as well. But as you can see in the video, if you go towards maybe the beginning and pause it a little bit, you'll see that no one is in the driver's seat. There's someone in the passenger seat. And I believe that's likely just an engineer, sort of for safety reasons. And then it looks like there's a chase car, probably engineers in there as well, just as a precaution for safety reasons. Because Tesla, there's a massive, massive spotlight on Tesla with this. And if any little thing were to go wrong, you know that the media and everyone's just going to blow it out of proportion and focus on everything negative about it. And it could really, negatively impact the company and its Robotaxi rollout. So Tesla has to be super careful here. But nonetheless, this is like such an awesome moment. It's what sets Tesla apart is that this is a car you can buy today for like $37,500 after the EV credit. Like anyone can go out and buy this thing. It's not, you don't need some special retrofitted expensive sensor suite or added on later like a Waymo or anything. This is just ready to go from the factory, and they're running a special version of the software. But we'll all get that, I think, eventually later. But this is such a massive moment for the company. It doesn't matter whether it's one Robotaxi, 10 or 100. I think what the main point is, does this technology work and are they using it on the streets? And it looks like yes on both fronts. So
I take back my misspeak. I didn't even see the engineer in the passenger.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't see anybody in there, but maybe he's kind of like sitting back.
I think eventually there's going to be just nobody in the car, but I think just for now, while they're testing, they're probably just going to have engineers in the passenger seat, just in case they need to override it.
Would you like to address Gordon Johnson's tweet about how they have to have the Tesla following behind it because they're so worried things are going to go wrong?
Look, everyone keeps moving the goalposts. Like 5 years ago when FSD beta first came out, they're like, oh, it can't take like left-hand turns or whatever very well. And then eventually now we're here like, oh, well, there's a chase car behind the Robotaxi. It's like, who cares? It's not going to be there forever. It's just as a safety precaution at the beginning during the testing phase, and then it'll be gone eventually. So,
yeah, 100%. Omar, you excited?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great moment. It's a moment that a lot of people said would never come. They said you just can't drive a car with computer vision. You need LiDAR. So that turned out not to be true. And I think they're going to expand a lot from here. I don't think that they have the people in the car to intervene, right? They're not going to jump across the car and grab the steering wheel. They're really just there to observe as passengers, to try and see how the ride is for a rider before they start accepting real riders on the 22nd. So they're going to scale massively from here. I like the design of the car. I like that they wrote Robotaxi on the side. So there is at least something to tell them from the regular Model Ys you're going to see in Austin. And I think it's a great first video. I mean, you can see just how many pedestrians there are on this street. and how the Tesla's just navigating so naturally, waiting for the pedestrians. It's so natural that people don't even realize that there's nobody driving the car. So I think it's a great demonstration. They're really trying this out in the real world. And, this is just a start. I mean, it's not the finish. This is day one for them. I kind of liken it to when that first Model 3 was produced. And there was a lot of production hell ahead of the company. There was a lot of work to do. But we can look back now at that moment the first Model 3 was produced in 2017 and say that was the start of affordable EVs taking over. So I think this is a historic moment that people are going to remember. And within a few years, there will probably be more driverless cars on the road than human-driven cars.
Yeah.
And to your point, Omar, last October during the We Robot event, when they were doing I guess it was unsupervised FSD drives technically for everybody, you could sit in the front passenger seat, but if you tried to grab the steering wheel, it actually wouldn't let you disengage it. So I think, you're right that even if the engineer wanted to, I think it's probably the person that has the teleoperation somewhere that could disengage it. And maybe there's like a button on the screen that you can just say like stop ride or whatever. But yeah, I remember the videos of people riding in the Model Is at the We Robot event. People were like grabbing the steering wheel and it wouldn't disengage. So if people are curious if that was going to be the case, it won't be.
Yeah, I think that's right. There is going to be a button on the screen that says stop ride. We saw that in some of the videos they shared. So that's going to be how passengers, let's say it's, heading into a disastrous situation, you can hit that button, and that's sort of the way that passengers can intervene, I guess.
How does the Waymo work? Like, is it the same thing? Can you grab the steering wheel and it wouldn't disengage it?
Yeah, if you grab the steering wheel, they'll get upset at you. They'll brake so the car doesn't move. The thing is, it doesn't have steer-by-wire, so it does actually move the car. So they'll just hit the brakes. They'll call you on the phone, and they'll shout at you. They'll threaten to kind of kick you off the service if you do that.
You sound like
But
you've experienced.
Waymo does also have a stop button on the screen that you can push. I think it says pull over. So it is important to have that override, but in my experience, it almost never gets used.
Yeah, Omar, you know a little too much about that, but I think that that's good for the listeners to know. To me, I'm just curious your guys' thoughts. Elon is really emphasizing the fact that any car can become a robotaxi, but then they're also now putting out this car that specifically says robotaxi on the side. It kind of gives maybe like a little bit of mixed messaging to the people who aren't fully grasping that every car can be one of these. What do you guys think?
Well, think of Waymo. I think their sensor suite costs anywhere from like $75,000 to $100,000 just for like the LiDAR, the radar, and the cameras and the whole rig to retrofit. And then the Jaguar I-Pace probably costs anywhere from $65,000 to $75,000 on top of that. And they've, Jaguar has since discontinued the Jaguar I-Pace. But that's like $150,000 to $180,000 car right there. That's what it costs them to put this thing on the street. For Tesla, it cost them what, like $35,000 to put this Model Y in the street? It's like they're not in the same league. And this is before Cybercab comes out, which will be, 20 to 25 or probably $20,000 cost or so. So I know that Waymo is working on their 6th generation cars. I think they're still going to be way more expensive than, a Model Y or Cybercab Robotaxi is. But Tesla really, to me, has the only scalable solution. So I think that's going to become quite evident as they expand this service throughout the year.
Yeah, I think Sawyer hit the nail on the head there. That sticker on the side that says Robotaxi, that is the full extent of the difference between Sawyer's Model Y and that Model Y that's operating driverlessly.
Literally, yeah.
And that's crazy, right? This is the first time that we've seen a driverless vehicle that's in mass production. And not just mass production, it's actually the best-selling car model on Earth. They make more than 1 million units of this thing across the globe on 4 factories in 3 continents, right? So contrast that to Waymo. Sawyer made another great point that the Jaguar I-Pace is discontinued. First, Waymo has to buy the car. They have to ship it from the factory where it's made to the remanufacturing facility in Mesa, Arizona. They start taking the car apart. They install the sensors. They calibrate it and eventually get a vehicle. They've got about 1,500 on the road right now. They have about 2,000 more I-Paces that they've taken delivery of from Jaguar. But once they make those, that was the final delivery. Now they're going to have to move to a whole new car, the Zeekr RT. And there's going to be some challenges to that in moving to the 6th generation sensor suite. So you can really see that their production ability is limited. There's a lot of bottlenecks. There's a lot of cost. It's a slow process. They think that when their Mesa facilities ramped up, they can do thousands or tens of thousands of vehicles a year. Tesla is already making more than 1 million of these vehicles a year. So it's a profound difference in terms of production. This is a driverless car that's actually in mass production right now, and we're just not seeing that anywhere else in the industry.
When these robotaxis are on the street, Tesla's really going to be the only autonomous vehicle operator in the U.S. that makes its own cars, its own robotaxis. So you really can't compete with that.
Yeah, and when you look at what's happening with Waymo, where the car they use is literally not in production anymore, and they have no control over that, and now they're forced to move to a different vehicle. It's very different than, Tesla that is designing vehicles like the Cybercab that are purpose-built just for this purpose. And, I think they're going to be the first company to make money on robotaxis. They're going to be the first company to turn a profit. And a big reason why is really the cost structure and the fact that they can just pick an ordinary car off the line.
I would love to know Waymo's financials. I know they won't break that out, obviously, but it'd be fascinating to know.
Yeah, I mean, we do, so Google and Alphabet have a section called Other Bets. And Other Bets includes Waymo, but it also includes a few other companies like Verily and other stuff. So it's a little bit unclear how much of that's Waymo and how much of that's other companies. But their Other Bets is burning about $1.2 billion a quarter. So Waymo's probably burning anywhere from $2 to $4 billion a year by my estimates.
Yeah, this is just Grok's, estimates of financials. 312,000 paid rides per month, 100,000 here per week. Let's take a look through. They give their funding, valuation, expenses. So this is probably the piece that you were just touching on right there. You walk through the autonomous Jaguar, it's saying around 100,000 per them. Man, they're really getting into the details here. Okay, I don't know if I need all this, Grok.
It's a bit much, yeah.
It's a bit much. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess to be honest, right now, anything would be speculation within these pieces. But here's the summary. Revenue estimated at somewhere between 78 to 325 million annually. Funding of 11 billion right there. Losses about 1.12 to 1.23 billion quarterly. Contributes to the losses.
The valuation of 45 billion kind of seems low at this point. If they're doing
that says of October 2024.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting, and you guys make some great points. Is that you're kind of going to get to a place, and I'm wondering to hear your guys' thoughts on timeline here, where the car is created in the factory, rolls off the factory line, goes to work, right? It's pretty much that simple. But then the other side of things is the entire fleet that's already out there that people already have being turned on. And to me, what that boils down to, and kind of the exciting thought process here, is opportunity cost, right? Right now, truthfully, if you have a Tesla versus a regular gas car, maybe your opportunity cost is gas, right? Some of these other things, maybe FSD, a little bit of your attention, but that's going to escalate. Certainly once you get unsupervised FSD, now your opportunity cost is your time. But once your car can actually go out and drive itself and provide robotaxi services, a big example right now. So I'm traveling for the last 3 weeks. My car is sitting, in a parking lot doing nothing for 3 weeks. I still have to, pay my car payment on it, but it doesn't make anything. But hypothetically, right, we can get to a point here where I don't even have to be in Puerto Rico around the car, and the car could just be turned on and going and doing rides for me, right? And it could be paying for my car payment right now. And that's when I think everybody's going to have a huge mindset shift on, okay, this is an entirely different game that we're playing, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're really looking at the way we consume transportation changing. Add up all the expenses of owning a car, the car payment, the interest on the loan, the registration fees, the fuel, the maintenance, the car washes you do, the new tires you have to buy. It's about $12,000 a year for the average American. Start adding in some other expenses like car washes, it can go as high as $17,000 a year. It's like having to buy a new iPhone Pro every month in terms of the cost to the consumer. You add up all that stuff. I mean, think about the cost of even renting a house that has a garage as opposed to one that doesn't have a garage. You add up all these things, there's a huge opportunity, I think, to change the way we consume transportation. And that's what I think we're going to see unfold over the next few years as these things become widespread enough to replace your car.
Sawyer, so I don't, maybe you can talk this or not. I haven't really talked to you about this, but do you plan on making the trip down to Austin, catching any more footage here? Any thoughts around that?
So Elon last night, he shared a sort of a soft tentative date of June 22nd, which is a Sunday, which I think makes sense. There's fewer people out on Sundays, and that's a good probably first day to have public Robotaxi rides. I still don't know if it's going to be invite only or early access. I imagine it will be. We discussed that already on the Gigacast. I booked my stuff, but all of it is refundable. So I can cancel if I need to, which I probably will have to. I think this date is just really fluid. And, you never know with these things. They're going to be extremely cautious with this. So I wouldn't be surprised if it gets pushed back a little bit, but we'll see.
I need like one of those, those like comedians in cars, and they just put you and Omar in the back. We do a little Talking Tesla comedy show in one of the Robotaxis. I think that would be good content for them to get rolling. Maybe they get Hans in there, something like that, right?
Yeah, maybe we'll do a Gigacast episode from a Robotaxi.
I feel like if anyone deserves to have a drive in the first Robotaxi rides, it is Omar, because he's been doing these FSD videos like daily for 5 years-ish, ever since FSD Beta first came out. So I feel like this is a big moment for the company, for the community as well. That's
Omar,
been covering this for years.
Do you remember when your first FSD ride was?
Yeah, I mean, we got FSD Beta on October 22nd, 2020. So it's been about 4.5 years, almost 5 years, that we've been testing beta versions of the software. And now we're finally to driverless.
Yeah, pretty cool to see it just continuing to come along. I did screen share earlier while we were looking at a couple things, just some other quote tweets that had come from there. Elon talking, he quote tweeted it and said, beautifully simple design. Then he quote tweeted that one and said, these are the unmodified Tesla cars coming straight from the factory, right? Which is, I think, a very important piece to put out there so that people know that there's not a lot of changes that have to happen here. If anything,
you wouldn't know it's a Robotaxi unless you see either the decal logo on the side of the vehicle or that you see there's no one literally in the driver's seat. There's no other way to tell because it drives and just as smoothly as a human does.
Can we talk for a second about the software version here? And Omar, I'll throw this to you. So somebody tagged you in this question. They said, what software version do these cars have? Is it the same version as what we are using on our HW4 cars, or is it a newer version that will be available to us soon? And Elon said it's a new version. We'll merge the main branch soon, and it's much more advanced. Maybe you can talk about 4x the params and what this all means.
Yeah, so the car hardware is the same as any other car. Now, the software that's running on that car is not the same FSD 1329 that we're running on our cars. They have a new version of the software. Maybe we could call it FSD 14, or maybe we could call it FSD 13.3. But there's a new version of FSD that's running on these Robotaxis. It's better than what we have. Now, Elon said we're merging it into the main branch soon. What that means is those changes are going to be brought to the fleet. It's going to be brought to Sawyer's car. It's going to be brought to my car. And we'll be able to use a lot of these improvements for ourselves. For example, a Robotaxi needs to pull over when it hears an ambulance. But the broader fleet doesn't have that capability yet. So a lot of those little things, those little behaviors, that's going to go from the Robotaxi code into our vehicles. It was obviously never intended to be Robotaxi only. They want to bring that capability to the whole fleet. Elon also talked about a next generation version of FSD that has a larger AI model, 4.5 times larger. So they're really starting to try and push AI forward to its limits, train the most powerful model they can. And in the past, when they've increased the model size, for example, I think they increased the model size by 3x to 5x for V13. I forgot how much exactly. You saw the model become a lot more lifelike. So I would expect to see that with this next generation version of FSD that Elon expects to come later this year. in another software update. So hardware is the same. Some new software improvements are going to be coming to the fleet. But yeah, I think the really key thing here is it's a beautiful design. I mean, just put it next to a Waymo. Just put the two cars next to each other and look at them. The Tesla's an ordinary car. The Waymo has all kinds of things sticking out. It's almost comical. I was just at the Peterson Automotive Museum, where they have all kinds of cars from the last century. And it was amazing looking at all these weird cars. People really did some weird things. And the wackiest car at the Peterson Auto Museum was honestly the Waymo, with everything sticking out. I said, this is the weirdest looking car anyone has made in 100 years. And I think there's really something elegant about the Tesla design. It looks just like an ordinary car.
Yeah, it is. And I actually wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this. There's something that I saw, and people always say, hey, we're just playing the bull side. So I want to, just throw some questions at you guys. I saw a post where for autonomous vehicles, I think it was specifically for Waymo, maybe they were gathering some data from somewhere else as well. They talked about how they asked people, what is the number one thing that you care about when it comes to a autonomous vehicle or to essentially like an Uber ride or things like that? And people very highly ranked their care for the inside, right? Having space and comfortability and pieces like that, but they didn't highly rank the outside. And so I've seen some people that say, hey, these Zoox cars or whatever you're looking at, maybe they look funny on the outside. They definitely don't look as nice as a Tesla, but they give people perks on the inside. Curious to get your guys' thoughts if maybe, this is part of the plan. Later on, we've talked about a minivan or other things. Tesla, they have this technology, it can work on all the cars, but do you think they build out a car that's more specifically focused on perhaps specifically large group rides? And I do know that they have the Robovan, but maybe something more like in between.
I would think the number one thing people would want or the focus would be safety. Because if it's not safe, you don't ever want to get into it.
Safety first. Sorry. Yes. That one goes unsaid.
I mean, yeah. So obviously, like the Jaguar I-Pace isn't the most comfortable vehicle. I would argue the Model Y is a more comfortable vehicle. But this is sort of what they've been focusing on with the Cybercab. It's literally solely meant to be the best user experience possible. It's a seamless experience, but it's also the most comfortable, has the most amount of legroom. It's a tiny car. If you ever stand next to one, it's very small. But once you get inside, it's very spacious. And so I don't think people are going to have any issues on the Tesla side. I don't know what Waymo's 6th generation vehicles are like on the inside. I've seen one personally testing on LA streets, but I don't really know what the inside will be like yet. It does look more van-like though. It's not a Jaguar I-Pace SUV shape at all. It's a straight up box, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially when you're owning the car, people don't want to own an ugly car. They don't want to worry about the LiDAR on the roof scraping against their garage as it's entering. So I think it does matter to some extent, but people will put up with an ugly car if it means getting driverless capability. So really, when you look at the interior of the Zoox vehicle, for example, yeah, it's a larger interior, but you've also got 4 people facing each other. It may be a shared ride, it may be strangers. Rather than staring at some stranger awkwardly for the ride, I think what people would actually like better is a personal ride. And you look at the Cybercab, it's got a ton of legroom, it's personal, it's focusing only on your destination, and it's got this huge screen you can interface that's just for you. So I think that's really what people want in the interior. They want privacy, they want space, and they want a vehicle that still feels like a personal vehicle, not a bus.
Do you think, I guess this is where maybe like Cybertruck, comes into play, because I feel like a lot of the Ubers that I call, I'm going to the airport, and especially if I'm with someone else and we both have checked bags, it can be hard to get all of our checked bags into a sedan type vehicle. And so with that in mind, I'm often calling, Uber XLs and things like that. So do you think that that's going to be like kind of just an option within the app, right? Hey, I just need something bigger. Do you think you'd be able to fit, multiple check bags into?
I think that's what the Model Y is for. And, maybe there's going to be a few Model X's on the network as well. But I think not like we've said on the Gigacast many times, 90% of rides are with two people or fewer.
Right.
So for those 5 to 10% of the times that you need, you're going to the airport maybe with your whole family, then maybe you just hail, Model X or something if you needed more luggage space and stuff. So, but I think ultimately people don't care what a Robotaxi looks like as long as it's safe and it's cheap and it's comfortable. Like, I think those are the three main things. If they nail those, people don't care if it's ugly. If they're saving money taking it and it's comfortable, whatever.
For sure. Now, I know it feels like it's been a lifetime since our last episode with all the saga of Elon and everything that's happened since, but we still got to talk about it, even with some apologies coming out today. Before we do dive into the Elon tweets of a lifetime, just want to remind everyone, thank you again for watching here on YouTube. Please go ahead and click that subscribe button below. I believe we just broke through 5,000 subscribers. And of course, we're also going to do a mailbag at the end of this. So if you do have questions, especially because we're about to transition to talking about Elon a little deeper, if you do have questions regarding Robotaxi, please go ahead, comment them below. If you put the word question at the start with a colon after it, that's really helpful for me to know that that's a question that you want us to pull out and talk about here. And feel free to throw some fun ones at us or some intricate ones. We'd love to pick these guys' brains with them. But with that being said, let's get into it. So Elon Musk came pretty heavy for Trump about a week ago, called him ungrateful, said that he won the election for him to a point with the money that was spent in the lobbying. Of course, dropped a pretty large bombshell that involved Epstein. And he's recanted a lot of it since, especially today with messages coming out. I can screen share a little bit of this, but him really, apologizing, saying that he went too far, which I don't know if that's him saying, I regret what I said because it wasn't true or for something else. It's a little bit hard to say right now exactly how he's feeling within this, but he did say, I regret some of my posts about President Trump last week. They went too far. Omar pulling up some likes here with it was pretty funny though. So that's a great one right there. So yeah, I mean, there's been a constant running theme of Elon Musk's tweets and his mouth get in the way of shareholder value. And at the end of the day, a CEO, their job is to protect shareholder value, but he's kind of out there just shooting from the hip. And there were a lot of takes on these. And I think people are a little bit more hyperbolic about them before today. But yeah, we'd love to get your guys' thoughts.
Yeah. I remember in Walter Isaacson's biography of Elon Musk, he sort of portrays his public outbursts as part of a deeper psychological pattern, sort of describing them as like sudden, intense, demon-like episodes that stem from sort of a volatile, multifaceted personality. And, he added that Elon can go dark very quickly, even toggling between, very giddy to sort of being in an engineering mode. And then suddenly the clouds come. And then after these demon-like tirades where he can get really tough on people, he sort of snaps out of it. And I think this is sort of what we saw last week, and that things, escalated quite quickly between him and Trump. But I think Elon took it too far with the Epstein post, especially. And I think, he's since recognized that because he's deleted the post and all the ones associated with it. But also today, he admitted that he took it too far. So I think, to be a long-term Tesla investor, you kind of have to have brass balls, because if you don't, your emotions just could get the better of you in situations like this, and with things like what happened last week. And they're often really unpredictable, and they often cause massive volatility in the stock. And I think they also just disappear as quickly as they come. They're the strangest things. Elon in 2018, I remember he called I think a cave diver like a pedophile on Twitter. And investors were freaking out. I think the stock fell, but then eventually things settled down and people moved on. So I think these sort of mood swings are not isolated, but I think they stem from Elon's sort of complex emotional makeup. He's a brilliant guy and he's extremely driven, but yet he's often mercurial and volatile and impulsive, I guess we'll say. And so if you are a Tesla investor, you sort of have to accept this. That sort of, it comes with the territory. And does it hurt Tesla stock? Yes, in the short term, but I think long term, maybe not so much. I'm sure for employees, it's a little bit of a sort of a whiplash situation when they do happen, but you kind of have to take it for what it is and accept that it happens. I think it's part of, maybe his Asperger's comes out a bit. But I remember Tallulah O'Reilly saying this, which is Elon's former girlfriend, I think from 15, 20 years ago or something. She described him as like the most emotional person that she ever met, and to me that like meaning he has a lot of feelings, and when he feels love he senses a deep feeling of love, but when he gets mad he gets really angry, and it's sort of a roller coaster. But he's a really effective engineer and he gets shit done. So we kind of just have to take it for what it is and deal with it when it comes, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this was such a crazy episode. This was such a microcosm of everything in Tesla stock. The reaction to this, the blow up, everyone freaking out, $150 billion getting wiped off the market cap. People were predicting SpaceX was going to be nationalized and absorbed into the federal government because of these tweets. They were predicting that, well, we're not going to do autonomy anymore. The federal framework on autonomy is over because, well, saving lives is less important than, Elon's tweets. So people really got out there in terms of the negativity. There's probably a lot of people who panic sold below 280. There's also some people who probably bought below 280 and are now up $50 a share as they've kind of mended that relationship, which I think a lot of people didn't see coming at the time. But look, Sawyer and I have been investors in Tesla for a long time. We've seen a lot of crazy tweets over the year. One of my favorite is in 2018 when they were ramping the Model 3. And as an April Fool's joke, he decided to post that the company was going bankrupt and the stock tanked. Wasn't so fun for investors that day, but ended up being kind of funny in retrospect. And, that's Elon. There's really only one Elon Musk in the world. This was like front page news. I went to my family dinner. Everybody's talking about this. Like, this guy is so famous. Everything he says gets blown up and everybody has an opinion on it. Oh, this guy's crazy. No, he has a point. And people forget that the only reason Elon Musk has 200 million Twitter followers or X followers is that he is one of the greatest innovators of our time. Because this guy launches and lands rockets, puts driverless electric cars on the road, has monkeys playing Pong with their mind and ALS patients controlling a computer with their mind, that's why people listen to him. That's why people follow him. That's how he became one of the most famous people on Earth. And that can be a blessing and a curse. Having all those followers can be extremely powerful, right? For getting the word out about your product, for speaking about what's in your interest, for countering media narratives. It can be extremely powerful. It can also inevitably end up with you putting your foot in your mouth, like we saw this week. And there have been a ton of incidents where he pissed people off, right? That kind of comes with the territory. You have this power, you can also piss people off. I mean, look at, for example, Ukraine. SpaceX, I think people don't realize how critical their role has been in the Ukraine war. Starlink, providing that connectivity. I mean, even when you see these drone attacks, Starlink has been crucial for things like that. But because of some of his tweets, people sometimes see him as anti-Ukraine, which I think isn't true. So this is just something you kind of have to understand as a Tesla investor. There have been many incidents like this, and this is not going to be the last incident. This is not going to be the last time people are freaking out about some horrible tweet that Elon Musk made and saying it's the end of the world. But the investors who I think did well this week were not focused on the drama. They were focused on the June Robotaxi launch, which nobody was talking about as this whole situation unfolded. They were thinking about the new, more affordable vehicle model starting production, which nobody was talking about as this unfolded. But I think we're seeing pretty quickly that as we move through the week, the Elon Trump stuff started being less and less material, and the Robotaxi sighting started to be more on people's mind. So investors who were able to sort of filter out the noise and focus on the signal, I think, did very well this week. And a lot of other investors probably ended up selling right before the Robotaxi launch.
I was telling a friend a couple of days ago, and that I was saying, Trump is so good at social media. He's so good at garnering attention. There's only one person on earth that's better at social media than Trump, and that's Elon Musk. Like the guy's ability to keep things interesting and entertaining it's unmatched. Like you never know what's happened.
I don't personally believe that the saga is fully over, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. The whole root cause of his tweets was the bill that got pushed through the House kind of in, the dead of night. They didn't have time to even read it. And by the way, I did more research into that, and it was crazy how they got this bill through. Omar, I'm sure that you've looked into this too, but essentially for most bills, there's a clause that you need to have 72 hours or whatever that time period is to, give people time to read it. But apparently they basically took like a previous bill and then they just like added on everything to that and made a ton of modifications. So it wasn't a new bill and it didn't have to go through those periods. Then even within that, there's supposed to be a 24-hour period that Congress has to review. The speaker pushed through a motion that they voted on to suspend that 24-hour period so that they could just vote. So they literally got the bill basically right as debate started. And then 2 hours later, they had to vote on it. And the bill was 1,000+ pages. And they're supposed to be talking, not reading it during that time. So there was a lot of frustration, obviously. And it got through the House, with a singular vote win, right? It was whatever it was, 115, 215, 214, or 216 to 215. And now this is going to, potentially make its way through the Senate. Now, there is going to be a lot of change that has to happen inside of the Senate in order for this to get through, because there's multiple Republicans who have already come out and said, we're not going to vote for this in its current state. But if this draws close to July 4th and it looks like it's actually going to go through with a lot of the things that Elon is still against, do you think that that could just cause another episode, maybe, similar to the other? Because I feel like that was the cause for all this, and that hasn't gone away.
Look, I think Elon is a purist. He doesn't want to just pass some turd of a bill that adds to the deficit because, yeah, that's what happens in politics, and this is my team. I think he was really saying, look, we got to sort of stand up against this. I think he was kind of feeling emotional. I think the taking back Jared Isaacman's nomination made him upset. I think some other things made him upset. And I think he felt betrayed, right? I think he helped get Trump elected. He considered Trump a friend. There was clearly an emotional backdrop there. But honestly, putting a little bit of distance between him and the administration, I think, is something that kind of needed to happen as he left. He is not going to be in the White House making every single decision. He doesn't want people associating him with some of these things that he actually doesn't agree with, right? So I think hopefully they are able to find a comfortable medium where he's not calling the president a pedophile, but at the same time doesn't have to agree with every single piece of legislation or every action the administration takes. He can speak up where necessary, but hopefully they're able to remain friends. Honestly, I thought it was very unusual for Trump. If you look at Trump, when somebody insults Trump, Trump goes nuclear on them. Whatever they did, he goes 10 times harder. It's very similar to Elon, actually, in that way. But in this case, Trump was de-escalating. He was trying to be very presidential. He's like, look, I got so many other things going on. I'm not really worried about this.
He was surprisingly measured, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's really a reflection of their friendship.
I don't think I've ever seen Trump respond like that. Was it you who posted, Omar? It was like, usually Trump would have had 3 nicknames, ready to go by now. Drugged out Elon,
Yeah, totally. You're so right. Yeah, he would have, drugged out Elon or whatever. He would have come up with some nickname.
I've never met this
It's very
guy.
unusual, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little surprising. Okay, so absolutely.
But, at the end of the day, there were a lot of people who said, look, we actually do need to work with this administration to some extent. The goal of putting a human on Mars, that's something that any administration should definitely have as a North Star. There's a lot of interesting opportunities for SpaceX and NASA to work together. I think we'd all rather see that than have them in some kind of confrontational situation where they're trying to cancel SpaceX contracts. And on the Tesla side, if they can really get that federal framework for autonomy passed, that's going to be absolutely key to Tesla being able to realize their full potential. So I think it's good that Elon put a little bit of distance in between them. He maybe went a little bit too far there, going nuclear, but it's really great to see. And honestly, I didn't expect to see the relationship thaw a little bit. And hopefully that means that, some of the Trump trade is still intact, right? After the election, you saw Tesla shoot up with people expecting there would be benefits for the company. That's why I think you saw such a severe reaction as the relationship blew up. It was kind of the reversal of the Trump trade. But now we're seeing, I think the answer is going to be somewhere in the middle. And I don't think the administration is going to try and punish him. I think hopefully they actually have an opportunity to continue to work together on things that are shared goals.
Yeah, I almost wonder if this maybe gives people kind of some confidence moving forward. It's like Elon Musk can literally call the president a pedophile, and the stock will still bounce back, right? It's like is there anything higher? Because you were talking about 2018 when he joked about them being bankrupt. I became a shareholder in 2018, and one of my first experiences was when he tweeted at the SEC. His understanding of what the word SEC meant.
2018 was a banner year for those epic tweets.
Yeah. And I remember the SEC was basically trying to get him removed from his leadership positions, right? And what do you know? The stock's up 1,000+% since, right? And so it's just continued to keep going. And like you said, it's bounced back $50 a share right there, over 100 billion in market cap in just a couple of days. And so for those that stuck with it, I do think that at some point you have to look at it and say, okay, this is clearly, not affecting things in the long term, kind of no matter what he says. And it's just underlying tech that ultimately is driving things forward. Any other thoughts on Elon v. Trump or Elon crazy tweets? Are we good there?
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it. I mean, this is a guy who has almost gotten fired because of his Twitter, right? When you talk about the SEC and a DNO ban, but he just cannot stop tweeting. He loves it too much. And honestly, we love it too. How boring would life be if Elon wasn't just tweeting whatever the hell he's thinking? But, it does have consequences. It has consequences for the relationship with the White House. So hopefully this was a little bit of a lesson. But I would not bet that this is the last time we'll see a crazy tweet from Elon that gets everybody talking.
Yeah, give it 48 hours and you'll probably have something. All right, so real quick, before we move into the mailbag section, Sawyer, just throw back at you just to kind of wrap up our discussion on Robotaxi. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out. So we have a new FSD website page, and a cool data point that we got is that FSD is 54% safer than a human, which is a new data point there. Also, Tesla is now listed as a known AV operator in the Austin DMV website, which you tweeted out, and that seemed like a pretty big monumental moment, right, for that happening. Those are, and we also know that the Robotaxi launch may not happen this week. Those are kind of just other accentuating pieces around Robotaxi that I saw you mention. Any thoughts around them?
Yeah, the being designated as a known AV operator in Austin, Texas from the DMV website, that was actually one of the last major hurdles that they needed to cross to be able to do public Robotaxi rides. So they're there. So they're ready to go, I think. On the new, Tesla did introduce a new website just for FSD. It's a good website. There's a couple tidbits of information that was new. I think one of the things was FSD is 54% safer than a human. I'm not sure if we've heard that statistic before. Maybe we have. I just can't remember if we did. But the other one was that they've done 3.8 billion miles, the whole fleet to date on FSD. And if you look at the last update they gave us on the Q1 earnings call, then it was, I think, a 3.6 or 3.5 or something. So this suggests that the fleet's doing, 3.5, 4 million miles in FSD per day, which is down about, I think, 50% from where it was a few months earlier. So this tells me that probably hardware 3 owners, cars with hardware version 3, are probably using FSD less because they're stuck on version 12, which isn't very good. The later, I think 12.6.4, whatever they're on. And a lot of people have complaints about that, but because their hardware just can't handle the increased compute needed and stuff that version 13 would require, they're stuck on that. So they probably don't use it as much. Also, version 13 users, so hardware 4 owners, they haven't gotten a major FSD update in many, many months. So that's probably another reason that people are using it less. But I have to imagine once we get, either another version of FSD V13 or maybe V14, people will start using it a lot more. But I think ultimately, Tesla does need to sort of figure out what they're going to do with these hardware 3 owners. I know Elon said in January that they're probably going to have to upgrade all these people that own FSD outright to hardware 4 or hardware 5 or whatever they ended up doing. But people haven't really heard anything on that front in the last 5-6 months. So I think an update would be good. I'm hoping we get that in the next few weeks from Elon, because a lot of these people are, they paid for FSD between $8,000 and $15,000, depending on when you bought, and they can't really get the latest version, which is kind of a bummer. And it's really good. So hopefully we get an update on that. I don't know if they might wait to version hardware 5. Elon did sort of suggest, I think last year, that it would come out the end of this year. So it doesn't really make sense to upgrade everyone to hardware 4 if hardware 5 is right around the corner, I guess. But I don't even know if hardware 5 can even go in these cars. I don't know how it's all going to work. I have to imagine that the service centers, once they start upgrading people, would be absolutely swamped, because you have tons of people that would be wanting to upgrade. So that's probably a consideration for them, and one of the reasons that they're probably delaying this a little bit. But yeah, I'm curious. I mean, do you agree, Omar, that people are probably using it less, FSD less lately, because they're stuck on hardware 3 version 12, or just because hardware 4 owners haven't gotten a big update?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on this. So, 3.8 billion miles, of course, is more miles than the rest of the self-driving industry combined. Now, I think Waymo's around 30 million miles. Those are driverless miles. So in terms of scale, it's a completely different situation. But Sawyer's right that, and he and I did the same calculation, when you look at the rate of change, it's fallen from about 10 million miles a day to about 3 or 4 million miles a day. And I think there's a few reasons for that. I would guess that one of the primary reasons is the reduction in free trials. There was a free trial period. I would expect you'd see a lot more miles traveled during that period. They were also giving FSD for free for, I think, 3 months with new cars. Now you need to use a referral code to get that. So it is interesting to see. I think another part of it is also that as they've been focusing on the Robotaxi service, they haven't been releasing FSD supervised updates to the fleet. So I think when people are seeing the same problems every day, whether it's AI3 or AI4, sometimes that can result in them canceling. When they see improvements, then they're usually more happy. So I think that is part of it as well. I think they're going to continue to release software updates to AI3 and AI4 and have the software continue to get better. But for AI3, they probably will eventually need to upgrade to AI4 or AI5 for the cars to be driverless. But I don't think they're going to do that immediately. I know they are working on it internally, but I think probably the next update we're going to see for AI3 is another software update. So, this is a metric I'm going to continue to track. If FSD is doing really well and if it's having a material financial impact on the company, you would expect this to see this go from 4 million to 10 million miles a day and beyond, right? So the growth of this, I think, is going to be an interesting thing to track. But, some reduction is expected given what's happening with free trials and the fact that they haven't been sending out any updates as they've been focusing on Robotaxi.
Is there any cyclicality that you guys see to it where it's like more people use FSD in the summer or something like that, or less in the winter or pieces like that? Or is it not like that? Is it just usually more like over time you're just seeing growth or stagnation?
I don't think there's any seasonality to it. I think, as I said, the primary thing that's probably keeping people from using it more is cost.
Right.
So do you think it's worth $99 a month, right? I mean, people may be using it a lot less just because if you have to cut down on your budget in a bad economy, tariffs, things like that, you're worried. But like I said, I think it's primarily the free trials and the fact that they haven't been sending out a lot of updates. So it hasn't been improving.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. Two other quick tech pieces to touch on. The head of the Optimus program is leaving. Does this cause you guys any alarm?
So, I mean, Milan is an incredible member of the autopilot team. Before he was the head of Optimus, he did a lot of things on the autopilot hardware, the autopilot computer. So he's had great contributions to Tesla for, you know, almost 10 years. So it's definitely a loss to see him go. The way Bloomberg kind of made it sound with the timing of the headline, everyone thought, oh, he's leaving because of Elon's Trump tweets or because Elon's so crazy or something like that. He emphasized in his post, no, that wasn't the reason. It sounds like maybe there's a family health issue or something. He wants to go abroad and spend time with his family. I think his family's in Europe. But, you know, there have been many people at Tesla, great people who've left over the years. And we always heard that it was going to be the end of the company. For example, when Andrej Karpathy left, I mean, he was really the godfather of Tesla Vision. Everyone said, oh, you know, it's over. Andrej Karpathy's leaving. What are they going to do now? Well, since Andre left, we had V12 and V13, dramatically better than anything we've seen before. When JB Straubel left, they said this is going to be the end of the company. And, you know, JB's now returned as a board member. He's doing great at Redwood Materials. So it's a loss for sure, but it's just a part of doing business in Silicon Valley. You typically don't see people stay more for more than, you know, 3 or 4 years before moving on to a new role.
When I saw that Bloomberg report came out that he was leaving, I was like, so I reached out to Milan and I DM'd him and asking if it was true, because you know you never know. Why not hear it from the horse's mouth? And he was disappointed that you know someone leaked it first of all before they could have publicly announced it himself, which is understandable. But he also emphasized, like, you know, he's been away from home for a long time. And he just wants to spend more time with family. Working at Tesla is like long days and long nights. It's especially for a decade, the time he did. And he was like there since the beginning of the Optimus program, which you know was likely extremely exhausting because Elon has really tough deadlines and tough goals and stuff to meet. So, and he really emphasized that Elon was very understanding that, you know, of his reasoning. It had nothing to do with Elon's posts or all the other political stuff going on in the world. This was solely just a family decision. And he just felt it was time. So, yeah. Tesla will be fine, though.
Yeah, it's a good comparison there with Andre. I think that's a smart one to make. Last tech piece, and then we'll dive into the questions, was on SpaceX here. And this is a tweet from Sawyer with some updated data. So this was a classic breaking post. Breaking, SpaceX has announced that Starlink now has over 6 million customers, up from 5 million in February of 2025, 4.6 in December of 2024. So that is only 4 months and 1 million new customers. 9 point.
Yeah, actually, wow. I left out a dot for the 5 million in February.
Right
so
here.
Just sort of put your, yeah. But that's almost 10,000 new customers
Sawyer
per day. I know, getting fancy now.
Big Excel guy.
That is insane growth, I gotta say.
That is insane. That is insane. So a few months ago, they were adding, well, I guess late last year, they were adding about 6,700 new customers a day, I think. So now they're upwards of 10,000 a day. And it's now available, I believe, in 141 countries and territories. And you have more and more ships adding it, cruise lines, airlines, and it's just becoming more and more common everywhere. And Starlink version 3 hasn't even started launching yet because, you know, that needs to be on Starship for it to launch up there. But that'll increase bandwidth, capability, and it's just incredible the growth of this company. Their valuation is $350 billion right now. ARK Invest, for the first time, actually just put out their sort of valuation model last night, and they predict their base case for 2030 is about $2.5 trillion valuation, up from $350 billion today. and then their base case for 2040, I think, was like 12 trillion if their Mars plans play out, and then 9 trillion if it doesn't, if only the Earth plans play out, which is both are insane. So ARK tends to be pretty bullish on these things, but yeah, I think SpaceX, they do twice a year, they do these sort of secondary rounds to help, employees be able to sell shares. And typically they do a valuation adjustment then. And these happen typically, in June-ish and around December-ish. So we should be getting potentially a valuation update in the coming month or so. So it'll be interesting to see what it is, but SpaceX is absolutely killing it. I think the number one most commented thing under my post was, when are they going to IPO? When is Starlink going to IPO? I want to buy it. And I hear that all the time. And I don't know when it's going to IPO. I'm not sure it ever will. I think Elon has so many scars from Tesla being a public company, especially with this like shareholder lawsuit of his compensation package. Just like, why would he want to introduce more headaches to his life? But on the other hand, you want to like give shareholders some liquidity, some employees easier liquidity. And obviously you'd love to have retail shareholders be able to be a part of this company from a, shareholder perspective. But I think Elon will
they may not need it. If they're profitable with Starlink, if they're producing that much cash, then do they really need to do an IPO?
No. Yeah, like Starlink, SpaceX hasn't raised any money in years. They've just been doing secondaries to give employees liquidity. But Starlink has been able to fund all of their operations for a while now. And that's only going to get better as Starlink continues to grow. So really, there's just no point to IPO right now, unless they needed the cash, which sounds like they don't. So,
yeah, I'll point out, even through the midst of the feud, and even being called a Epstein Island visitor, Donald Trump said, "I am not getting rid of my Starlink. It's too good."
It is too good.
That's the ultimate testimony. They should slap that, to be honest, on the packaging. I'm not getting rid of my
apparently
Starlink.
the White House had a really crappy cell coverage once you're inside, because it's thick walls and whatnot. So I guess Starlink really improved that for a lot of people. So they don't want to get rid of it.
It's huge in Puerto Rico. Tons of people. That's why they just sell them literally when you walk into Home Depot. They have just racks of Starlinks in Home Depot in Puerto Rico.
I just got a mount for my Cybertruck where I can mount the Starlink mini dish and use it while I'm driving. It's super nice. I was like on top of a mountain streaming Netflix. Like, if you're a tech geek, you kind of need to have a Starlink Mini. It just comes in so handy sometimes.
Does the Mini work well while you're driving? Like, can you connect easily?
Yeah. It works decently well. It's comparable to like a cell connection, I think. Obviously, you need to have line of sight to the sky. But it can give you internet in places that there just is no internet, right? Like when you're road tripping across the country, we've all probably had those moments where you're just in a dead zone. You don't have to worry about that if you have Starlink mounted onto the vehicle.
Is one of the issues that I actually saw in Puerto Rico was that so many people had Starlink that there were areas that were starting to get a little bit crowded. So do you think that potentially becomes an issue? Because it seemed like that was hurting the service a little bit when there were so many in one area.
Yeah, so there has been some issues with that in some more densely populated areas. Typically they'll throttle, your performance to be able to accommodate everyone's needs. But Starlink version 3, which again needs Starship to be able to launch up in this low Earth orbit, that will significantly increase bandwidth. So even in places that are more heavily populated should get better coverage once those things start going up.
Yeah, you just have to get more satellites up. And Starship, that thing's going to be able to bring up a lot more satellites.
Makes sense. All right, I am going to pull up a couple of questions from the audience. Let's run through a few of these. This was a question from Garrett. Given the slow nature of price reductions on the Cybertruck coupled with the lower than desired sales, do you think Tesla at its minimum sales price given COGS of those units? And some ideas here around AWD. Basically just asking around like costs of these pieces.
It seems like it's a hard vehicle to get cost out of. And they've made some comments like this on the earnings call to that effect. So I think obviously sales probably would be better if it was cheaper. But it's a tough vehicle to actually cut the cost out of.
Sales don't seem very good for the Cybertruck. Rear-wheel drive Cybertruck deliveries are supposed to start, I think, in the next couple of weeks. They were supposed to start this month. But I haven't seen a single person post a screenshot, hey, I ordered this. So I don't know how many they've sold of that. Typically, even with the cheapest Teslas, we see people post screenshots. I haven't seen any. So that's not great. So I think it's just a really quirky vehicle, and the design doesn't necessarily speak to everybody. And it's too bad, because I truly think it's Tesla's best all-around vehicle. If you get in that thing, it's unlike anything else. It's comfortable, it's fast, the steer-by-wire is awesome. But yeah, I think, as Omar said, tough to get costs out of, tough to bring the price down, and it doesn't have the largest market, as big of a market as certainly I thought it would. So not sure what the future of that product is.
Yeah, good thoughts. Keeping it real. All right, question here. This one came from Nick. This was a part of our discussion last week where we talked about when they move into colder areas, if you have block cameras, but even they could be referring to if mud splashed or other things like that. And just basically, especially on a Robotaxi, right? Maybe if it's driving around and there is no person or something like that, how do you think they'll handle block cameras? Ask the passenger to get up,
you
clear
just
them.
you just manually clear them off. Like the car inside will tell you, hey, the camera's like occluded or blocked or whatever. Go clear it. If it's just a straight up Robotaxi with no steering wheel, I think it'll probably just go back to wherever the Tesla cleaning center is, and the robot, either Optimus or the robot vacuum, will just clean it off.
Yeah, so I mean, they have some technology built in. They have wipers, obviously. The wipers are specially designed to clean the front cameras. The front bumper camera has a built-in wiper where it can kind of spray some water. So those are the really important ones, right? You're really only going forward in a fast direction. So those are the really critical ones. In terms of the left and right cameras, they do have some heating elements and stuff like that built in. But in a just sort of unfixable scenario, you would kind of just have to pull over, right? And maybe wait for someone to come clean it. Maybe send another Robotaxi to pick up that passenger. But I think what FSD supervised users can see is that it's actually pretty rare for the camera to get occluded to that extent. So we'll have to see how it works in the real world, but I think they've done a lot more work on camera occlusions than most people realize.
Nice. This was one of my favorite questions that we got, just because they're thinking like a finance guy like me. This was from Stieg Haskell. They said, in Robotaxis, you have a captive audience for a time. Is there a scenario where Robotaxis, their rides offer cheaper fares than the competition if the rider agrees to watch commercials while in the Robotaxi?
I think Tesla will be able to offer cheaper rides than their competitors without commercials, just due to the lower cogs. But I mean, I don't see Tesla. I think Elon hates advertising, hates commercials. I don't see it happening.
I just thought it was a funny one. Omar, you on the same page?
Yeah, I agree with Sawyer that Elon is not a fan of ads. I don't think you're going to see this happen in the next year or so. Down the road, 3-5 years down the line, Google obviously is a major advertising company. I think we could see a situation where you have sponsored Robotaxi rides in some cases. I mean, you could have rides that were essentially free if the advertiser's willing to pay the, 25 cents per mile or whatever the cost is. I think you could also have sponsored rides where, hey, you want to come to Walmart and shop? We'll give you a free ride there if you spend more than this amount or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Partnerships with
Yeah,
companies and stuff.
Yeah. So imagine, you buy a ticket to Disneyland and they go, yeah, we'll pick you up and we'll bring you in this car. Maybe the screen could even show some custom Disney content. There could be examples where the company's either paying for the ride or you have just sort of, ads playing on the screen or something. But I agree. They want to make this feel like a premium product. We're not going to see them do it right away. But yeah, down the road, you could imagine a situation where transportation becomes essentially free at the low end, where you can get an ad-supported ride for free, and you only have to pay if you want a bigger car, a car to yourself, you want no ads, or some extra capability.
Yeah, it's a fun little spitball there on the company subsidizing costs to get you to their location. I actually do like that. I think that there could
Well,
be a market.
remember, like yellow taxi cabs in New York, they would have these little things on the roof with like advertisements on there to help
Yeah.
subsidize some of it. So, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and even inside, right? I mean, businesses talk about the cost of customer acquisition, how much it costs to get the customer into your business. I mean, this is literally customer acquisition,
It's
where
true.
you can pay us and we will go get people and bring them to you.
You know,
And yeah, I mean, I think in general, just having the user in the vehicle and owning their time, that may be more valuable ultimately than even the fares. Because you think about it, you're going somewhere, being able to tell them, they ask, hey, I want to get something to eat. Just that ability to recommend to them where to eat, I think is enormously valuable, or where to go. When that user is in the Tesla Robotaxi using Tesla software, that brings a lot of value to Tesla. The same way that people using their iPhones all day brings a lot of value to Apple.
it's not a apples to apples comparison here within these pieces, but the idea of stores incentivizing you by covering and subsidizing some of the costs right now, a lot of places all over Puerto Rico, especially if you're in the city and it's difficulty to find parking. A lot of the parking lots, if you spend money in the store, they'll validate your parking, right? So like for me, if I go to like this one major parking lot, if I buy something, if I spend more than $5 at the grocery store will validate and pay for my parking. And so it's kind of like an interesting little piece there, similar idea of like, hey, just get people into the store, cover the cost for them. So I like how, Omar, you were saying like, hey, if you spend $5 minimum, we'll cover your Robotaxi ride coming here, right? And so they're shifting off some of that cost. Makes a lot of sense to me. It's interesting. One more question from the audience, and I really liked this one as well. This one was from Tim2. He said, great job, folks. Question: when we eventually get FSD unsupervised on personally owned cars, do you think Tesla will take liability for accidents when FSD unsupervised is on? And how will that work, basically?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of have to take liability, right? So if I go send my car out to the store to go pick up some groceries for me, and it happens to hit another car, I shouldn't have to be liable for hitting that car. I didn't hit it. So essentially, what you need to do is, as Tesla, just take out an insurance policy on the car and bake it into the price of FSD. So let's say FSD costs $99 a month and insurance costs, $10 a month. You essentially charge the user a price that includes the insurance. Or, let's say that a ride costs $1 a mile and insuring it costs 5 cents a mile. Then the price of the ride becomes $1.05 per mile. So Tesla raises the price, they buy an insurance policy, they cover the liability, just like they're doing in Austin right now. Any of those crashes, that's on them.
Agreed.
This made me kind of think like what happens with police in situations like your car's out and I don't know, FSD does something wrong and police pull it over and they say license and registration and there's nobody there. I'm just like trying to like imagine this a little bit.
Well, luckily, Waymo has figured a lot of this stuff out for us, right? And they've been working with law enforcement. They've got 13 million driverless rides. So they have a pretty good system now of working with law enforcement. They know how to contact Waymo rider support or Tesla rider support to get that done. I think actually what'll happen is in a Waymo, if it crashes, they'll get somebody on the phone speaking through the Waymo. So
Mm,
you could actually go up to the car and say license and registration and talk to it. And there would actually be someone there at the call center who could talk to you.
yeah. So, are any thoughts on those last two pieces?
No, I think you covered it well.
Perfect. Awesome, guys. Well, this was a lot of fun running through it. Very eventful week in the world of Tesla. We
Did
dropped
we
20.
cover the Farzad
Yeah.
departure at the beginning? I forgot if we
Oh,
touched on that.
apologies. Yes, no, totally meant to cover that. So yeah, obviously Farzad posted on social media. He posts a lot, so unfortunately, I don't have the tweet up right now. But we'll throw it up here and post that he has a lot going on right now. Obviously, Farzad has a new child. He has an amazing YouTube channel that people should go ahead and subscribe to, where he puts out a lot of content And so we're gonna keep the Gigacast going with ourselves. But yeah, I would love to hear if you guys have items that you want to add in on top of that. It's been obviously a pleasure working with him. He's a very, very fun personality to have as a part of this.
Yeah, I love the guy. He's great. He's got an amazing YouTube channel. Um, but yeah, we're gonna keep it going. I think, we really want to make the show great for everybody. So thanks to everyone who's watching and subscribing, and we're gonna keep it going.
Yeah, and if you guys have any ideas, let us know in the comment section of what we could do. We're just going to keep it us three for now. Maybe we'll add a fourth in the future at some point. I don't know. We're also probably going to incorporate interviews in the future. I think we want to start doing some of those. We've sort of just kept it to us, but I think we'll start expanding it a bit more. So, yeah.
Yeah, feel free in the comments below once we post this episode. One, obviously throw us questions for the mailbag, interesting thoughts, anything like that. Number two, if there's specific guests that you would like to see us bring on to this, feel free to comment those below as well. Throw some ideas out. Obviously, we're pretty familiar with most of the people in the Tesla space that people would probably want to have on. So we're going to get busy with those and start cooking up some ideas in the lab. Looking at this one, this was a fun one. We recapped a lot of the Donald Trump, Elon Musk pieces, spent a lot of time talking about, Robotaxi. Keep an eye out for June 22nd. We're only 11 days away from that at the recording of this. So it's coming up pretty quick. It's going to be before you know it. And things are only going to flourish from there. Omar, any final comments on this one?
I'll see you guys in Austin.
Yes, sir. Sawyer?
Same.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much, guys. As always, it's always a pleasure recording with y'all. Tons and tons of people, I think, are looking forward to these next 2 weeks, and I hope that it is as momentous as they was hoping. But reminder to everybody, if something does go wrong and they get things pushed back, it's really out of an abundance of caution and safety and wanting to make sure that this is done in the best way possible. And so exciting things are coming. Keep an eye out, and we'll be back with you next week. Take care.